Does it work? Can you? Okay, you probably can hear me. So awesome and both terrifying be here. This talk is gonna be about not that long title, but which was the initial abstract title for this talk. But instead, I'm gonna talk about multi-platform Dart. That's easier for you guys also search later. And this is an early preview, basically. I was just able to crunch stuff together just for this conference because I had a busy 2 months. So basically, a couple facts about me. I've been doing Android and Java and Kotlin for 5 years now, more than that. I've also done some other stuff. I actually started as doing web stuff back in 2004, but that was a hobby, so it was kind of a on and off relationship. And I'm mostly known as, I'm known as the guy who made the bottom bar library. I'm not bottom bar library myself. And I'm also the Flutter rocks guy, so I think I had one of the very first blogs about Flutter development, which I started 1 year ago. And last 17 months I've been focusing on Flutter. And like Channel said, I'm a Google developer expert for Dart and Flutter now, which I think is quite awesome. Okay, so movies are fun. I love going to the movies. And I live right next to a Finkino cinema, which is not true anymore because I'm relocating to Copenhagen. But for those of you that don't know, Finkino is this huge Finnish movie chain. And they basically have a monopoly position in Finland. They are so big there. And usually I'm on phone when I'm checking out movie showtimes. And this is a problem for me because the mobile experience is not that great. And here's the problems I have with the official app. So I'd say it's not that smart to use. It takes something like 5 clicks to get to the point, the movie that you want to see, or the schedule that you want to see. And it's not visually pleasing, which is an understatement. I feel like it's stuck in the honeycomb pages of Android, and it's not responsive. It takes something like 5 seconds to data to load in that app, and it's also laggy. And I thought that there's got to be a better way. And I found out that they have an API for it, which is an XML API. It's not anything fancy like JSON, but it works. And then I thought, since I'm an engineer, why not make it better? But before making the app and actually starting building the app, I thought that I have to have a good name for it. So I cannot use Finkino in the name because I would be kicked out of Google Play Store faster than I can say Finkino. But I still have to imply that it's an app for Finkino anyway, so that I get some users. So I had a lot of twists on the Finkino name for the app, and some of these names work better in Finnish. For example, Kinotin, not good. Fino sounds like a Greek supermarket or something like that. That wasn't good either. Kino, probably way too generic. And then I had this idea, and hear me out, I actually thought that this is an amazing idea. So the idea would be that it comes with an ugly pink theme, and the user has to pay to get a nicer looking theme. But it would be still better than any other Finkino app in the store. And I actually got this far making it. But then I had a perfect idea, which is just in Kino. And I'm actually pretty proud of that idea. I take a couple letters out of Finkino, and the main name actually means something, like in Kino, which means in cinemas. So what's currently playing in cinemas? And then I decided that now that I have the perfect name, let's build it. And it took me some while. And actually, it took me 3 years. And I had more than 5 unfinished projects. And this was the most that I could build in that 3 years. And I also dropped that and started it from scratch. And hobby projects are not fun. Starting them is fun. Finishing them, not so much. I actually have something like 80 private repositories on GitHub, but 20 of them are public. So I have a lot of these projects that I threw away. And it took me some like 5 attempts to create Inkino in native Android. And I always got carried away or bored and never finished those. And I was way too busy basically not finishing other projects or something like that. But then I heard about Flutter. And it was a funny story. It was Saturday evening, and I was getting pants drunk, which basically means drinking in your underwear. And I was browsing YouTube, and I found this talk by Eugenio Marletti and Sebastiano Bocchi on JoyCon Italy 2017. And it was about Flutter. And I was like, those guys are known for Kotlin and native Android, and they love them. So what's this Flutter thing? And I went to the website, and it said that, yeah, Flutter is a new mobile app SDK, blah, 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 cross-platform, blah, blah, blah. And my initial thought was like, yeah, right. Like, everybody says that, yeah, we have the best SDK. We solved the cross-platform problem, and it's awesome. And my experience was that, like, there's always something wrong with it. But then I thought, like, I've done much worse things on Saturday night, being drunk, so why not? And after a couple hours, I quite liked it. So why was it so awesome? Flutter makes building customized UIs fast and fun. They have developer-friendly APIs, and there's no like weird stuff going on. So I feel like they were able to start from scratch, really think about the stuff that they are building and the widgets, and there's no legacy code there. Like they have crazy good code quality, I think. And like it has fast iteration with hot reload on development mode, but it also has fast release builds with native AOT compilation, so the code is compiled ahead of time, so there's no runtime interpretership with your app. And this is my favorite part. So the UIs are consistent across devices and platforms. And this is Flutter takes a kind of different approach than most other cross-platform frameworks. It's kind of a portable rendering engine for apps, or it's like a game engine for apps, but not quite, but something like that. It doesn't use web views or doesn't use native views like React Native does. And basically what this means is that Samsung cannot use Comic Sans font or whatever that ugly font is on your apps, which is quite nice. And it also, we can do headless widget tests, which are really awesome. Like, you can do an automated test case, and then you can like say that, hey, we have a list here, let's scroll it with this velocity, and it should end up here. And you can run that without an emulator or simulator. And that's something that I cannot describe it. It's awesome. And last but not least, it uses Dart, and that's why it's awesome. And I totally did say that Dart is awesome. And I will not stop with these quotes because these are easy way to have variety on my slides. Why is Dart so awesome? Well, it has both just-in-time and ahead-of-time compilation. So, like I said before, you have fast iteration on debug builds, but on release builds, you have pre-compiled code, so there's no interpreter on runtime. Like Patrice said, it's a best of both worlds, really. It's strongly typed with a plus for a Java developer. It has 3-second compiler, which is also really good. Like it shakes away all the code that you don't use. So you can, for example, import a third-party library, use only one function from that library, and the rest of that, if you don't use it, they're going away in your release build, so there's no load on your release build either. And it comes with its own package manager and formatter, and this is really nice for a language, so that there's no like 15 different repositories for packages and like 5 different formatters, and then you have to fight with your teammates, like which configuration you use for your code formatting. Like, and .fmd is actually really opinionated, and they won't have, there's little to configure there, and that's by design. So if you think that your Dart code looks ugly, every piece of Dart code looks as ugly. It's like every piece of Dart code looks the same, so you don't have to have the mental gymnastics to like understand other people's code. And yeah, you don't have pro-card rules or multi-text issues like you have native Android. Unless you use a lot of plugins that import native Android code, then it might be a problem. And there's the cheap object allocation. So in Dart, you can create an object without synchronizing between threads. So it's a lock-free thing in there. And it's all in all, it's a familiar language. There's no weird stuff, for me at least. So how did it go? And this UI is still work in progress, like I said. I just managed to make this for just this conference. But here's the better version of that Finkino app that I just showed. Okay, thanks. And this was quite responsive as well. And if you see that it uses material design, kind of, it's just for the reason that I'm not a designer, so it's really hard to come with a customized UI, because I don't know how designers do it, but they're awesome. Finally, after 3 years, I was able to complete my project. It took me 2 or 3 weeks. I was still learning. I did it after work, so this was not like a full-time project for me. The time frame was 2 months because I like to watch cat pictures on the internet as well. And that, what you just saw, it's a single code base. It's 100% Flutter and Dart. There's no Android or iOS specific code that I needed to make for that. And I was able to iterate really fast thanks to hot reload. It's really awesome. And there's no weirdness, device-specific UI weirdness, it just works. And yeah, while Flutter is pretty great, it still didn't cure my desire to watch cat pictures on the internet. So I did have one incomplete Finkino project made with Flutter 1 year ago. But it's still like 4 less than the native Android, so that's good. What about the web? Now that we have a mobile app, what about web? Having a web app, not having a web app is, I think it's giving up on some users. It depends on your users, how much are you giving up, but there's definitely some users that you will lose. So how is Dart for the web? How does it look like? Turns out it started back in 2011 as an alternative to JavaScript. So the JavaScript support is pretty good. Like, it's actually really good. And they have web frameworks such as Angular Dart, which Google uses for AdWords, and Overreact, which is basically React for Dart. And I decided to go with Angular Dart because, well, I don't actually know why. I just thought that Angular and Dart, both of the things that my coworkers hate. So if you take two negatives, it must be positive. And it took me a few moments, and then I had this. So I had Inkino for the web as well. So here's the movie grid. Here's the showtimes page, so you can see what movies are playing and on which theaters. And here's also the movie details page. And yeah. And there's more. Like, that's not all. I was actually able to share code between Flutter and the web version. The sharing percent is over 40% of business logic there. And I feel like that's going to get better. I still have things to put in there, such as localizations, and there's probably some business logic that I can still extract there. I'm still experimenting with this because this is kind of new to me as well. So how did I do it? My friend Abe asked me. It's all about architecture, layering, and decoupling stuff. First step, indexing starts at 0, by the way. Use a common language, and in this case, it's Dart. Pick an architecture and stick with it. And the architecture has to be multi-platform one. And how do you choose a multi-platform architecture for Dart? Key things to look for here is that it cannot import Flutter or any Flutter plugins or dependencies. And it cannot either use web dependencies either. It has to be pure platform-independent Dart. And for an architecture in Flutter, there's two widely used options. First of them is Redux, and the other one is blocks, which is business logic components that Google uses for AdWords at least. That's what I know. And the second point is to strongly decouple logic from your UI. So, and this is really simple example, but don't do this. It's bad. This makes me sad. This business logic and UI, this is a bad architecture. You don't want to do this. It's hard to test, and it's not good. But this is better. Like, you separate your logic from the UI. So always be decoupling. The business logic layer, well, I'm kind of repeating myself, but it should be platform independent. And decoupling is the key enabler for code sharing. Without it, you cannot share your code. And when you decouple your business logic from the UI, it makes testing easier as well. And as a result, your UI code should be as dumb and lean as possible. And decoupling is a good practice, even if you're not planning on code sharing at all. Just do it. Shia LaBeouf said it best. Just do it. Third point is, if you have n supported platforms, you have n+1 Dart products. And what this basically means is that if you support mobile and web, you have 3 products. First one is common. This is a Dart package project with only business logic. The second one is mobile, which is a Flutter project. It imports and interacts with the common project. And the third one is a web project, and it's made with Dart as well. This is the Angular Dart part in my app. And this also imports and interacts with Common. And let's illustrate this a little bit more, because that might or might not make sense. So here's a mobile and web project without code sharing. So you have web app, UI on business logic, and mobile app at the same thing. So your UI and business logic are tightly coupled together, or at least are inside of your app. There's no code sharing here, but here you do. Like you have a common project which has your business logic, and you use your Redux or business logic components here. And then web app and the mobile app import that and interact with it. And what can be shared in that common project? I'm not going to pronounce that, but let's say localization. Dart logic without Flutter web dependencies. So basically, and also tests for that logic, which is a huge win. HTTP and HTTP communication API calls, JSON, XML, whatever parsing logic you have. Basically, any kind of business logic. Okay, this is going to be later, but yeah, okay, later. Key principles here: use the same language across all platforms. Try to shove as much code to the common module as possible. And test the common module library, because this is your business logic, and this is probably your the thing that makes you money, your secret ingredient. These are the tests that are actually the easiest and cheapest to write, because it's just business logic. There's no UI or framework stuff there. You don't have to do that stuff. And make your UI layers as dumb and lean as possible. So now we are going to go through some examples how I did some things in the Inkino project and shared code between Angular Dart and Flutter using Redux. And yeah, some people don't like Redux, that's fine. But I mean, I've been using it for more than 1 year now. I'm also using blocks at Reflectly, so I'm going to have an opinion on blocks in 6 months, probably. Why did I pick Redux? Well, it's already well-established pattern from the React world. It enforces strong separation for the UI from logic. It's predictable one-way data flow. It supports middlewares that you can swap, easily swap. For example, you can have a, let's say, standard HTTP API client there, and you can swap that with Firestore or Firebase pretty easily. It's just like switching one file. And Redux is multi-platform. And okay, now there's going to be some code. So this is the minimal counter example of Redux in Dart. So basic idea here is that we have a counter which starts at 0, and then we can add something to it. And basically, first we define an action, which is increment count action. This basically describes what we want to do to our Redux state. Then we have reducer, which basically is a function. It takes in the current state and an action. And if the action is increment count action, we take the current state and add 1 to it. Otherwise, we just return the current state. So basically, reducer takes in a current state, an action, and returns a new state. Then we set up our store with that reducer we just saw, and we say that initial state is 0. This is the magic part here. So we listen to changes, and whenever somebody changes the count or the state, we get this callback, and we can print something. And this is how you date your state. You dispatch an increment count action. And in this example, it would print to the command line saying that count updated, new count is 1. And that example was kind of problematic because if I want to explain something, we need simple example. But in this case, the example is so simple that it doesn't make any sense to use Redux for that at all. But believe me, in a larger project, it makes sense, and the boilerplate is worth it. And let's have a real-world example. How do we share code in the theater list? So on the left here, we have a web version of the theater list, so we can choose a theater, let's say Kino Palazzi, which is the closest theater to me. And here's the Flutter version on the right. And here's how the common logic for that works. And I don't have code sample here because you would all be sleeping after I show that. But basically, what it does, it loads the list of theaters from the XML API. It passes them into a list of theater objects, puts them to the state that the Redux store holds, persists the current theater selection locally, so that if you live in Helsinki, you don't have to select Helsinki as a location every time you start up with the app. And it also loads the persisted theater selection on upload. Defaults to all theaters if no selections exist. So there's a lot of business logic in the common module that I shared only for this theater list. And here's how the web version of that looks like. So here's our Angular component, and it's basically in its structure, it says that it wants a store, which is our Redux store. We can set up Angular in such a way that every time we ask something with the type of store in our constructor, it will automatically provide it for us. So that's pretty cool. And then we expose a getter, and we select a part of the Redux store that we are interested in. In this case, we are interested in theaters. And then we can use that getter in our component template, which is basically it's HTML with Angular stuff. We can loop through the theaters here and display them. And whenever the user clicks on a theater, we dispatch an theater selected action. And then a lot of stuff will start happening at this point. For example, it persists the selected. What's happening here? Okay, never mind. It persists the selected theater to a local storage so that the user has that theater as the selected theater when they visit the app again. It also does some other stuff, such as it loads the show times for that selected theater. It also loads the movie posters for that selected theater and a lot of stuff. And then it re-renders those theaters. These get updated because the Redux store state gets updated, and then we can re-render those theaters again. And here's how it looks on Flutter. So we have a theater list, which is a stateless widget. And in Flutter, we have this awesome utility in the Flutter Redux package, which is a store connector. It will find the Redux store and provide that to us. Then we basically select the part of the Redux state that we are interested in, which is theaters here. And internally, the store connector widget will pass that state that we selected here to the builder function. So every time that updates, we get this builder functions is run again. And then we can just render that to our UI. Okay, what about platform-specific behavior? So for example, yeah, this is still the same example, but how do we actually persist those keys and values? Well, how do we do it? And it's like different platforms have different solutions for this. So on Android, we have shared preferences. On iOS, we have NS user defaults. And on web, we have local storage. So basically, we have 3 platforms, 3 solutions, but none of them can be imported by the common module because you cannot. Those are platform-specific logic. We cannot import local storage in a common module because then it's not pure Dart. And then again, like we need to store key value pairs, but none of these key value storage APIs can be imported by the common module. Even Dr. Phil is confused now. So how do we do this? The solution is to inject or invert your dependencies in 2 easy steps. First, define common behavior. So we have an abstract class which acts like an interface. We need to get string values by key. And we also need to set string values by key and value. And then we implement that class for web and Flutter. And here's how the web implementation looks like. So we have a web key value store which implements key value store. And for the get string method, we just use window.local storage and get the key that we need. Set string method, we set key on the local storage to a value that we want. And for Flutter, it's really similar. So Flutter has this plugin called shared preferences, which enables us to use NS user defaults on Android and shared preferences on, no, the other way. But you get it. So we have single API for storing key value pairs. And same thing here. So we have Flutter key value store. It implements key value store, which is the abstract class. For getString, we say shared preferences, getString with the key. SetString, we set strings on the shared preference. And here's how it will look in the common business logic. So let's say we have this class, which is basically our business logic, and this is really simplified here. It has a function called setSelectedTheater with an ID. It takes in a key value store, which is still the abstract class, so it doesn't take in Flutter key value store or web key value store. It only takes in key value store. So it doesn't know about the implementation. It just knows that, yeah, it's a class that has getString and setString implementations. And then on the setSelectedTheater, we just call key value store.setString with the key theater and ID that we want. So this is a Flutter example, but a similar thing would be on the web as well. So we create an instance or get an instance of the set preferences for Flutter, pass that to our Flutter key value store, which is the implementation of the key value store abstract class. And now that we have that, we can pass that to our myBusinessLogic class. And now we can just setSelectedTheater without our logic component knowing anything about which it doesn't know that we are using Flutter key value store, web key value store, or whatever key value store. Oh, this is actually some template slide that I forgot to remove, but this applies to, let's say, voice recorder, camera, Bluetooth as well. So you can build an abstraction out of Bluetooth and Flutter and web-specific implementations as well. Oh, a demo. Are you holding that for me, or is it just a... That's for me. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Technically 4 now, but no, it's just...
Okay. Oh, well, I just... let's just have a quick demo here. So basically, here's the Android and iOS apps. For the iOS app, we get the iOS bouncy scroll effect and like navigation transitions. This is handled by the out of the box by Flutter, by the way. And on Android, we get Android-specific overscroll behavior. So you get that claw effect. And navigation transitions for Android. And yeah, there's not much to it. And here's the web app. So it looks like this. And we can select theaters, and it remembered that I chose Oulu instead of Helsinki. But here's basically the same functionality. And you can also show movie details. And this is also responsive. So my goal is to make this as a progressive web app as well, so I could really, it would be better on mobile as well. That's a short demo. Okay, I think I'm pretty done here. So conclusions, start decoupling your UI and business logic early on. Pick an architecture and stick with it. Keep the web and mobile UI dumb and lean. And shove as much logic to the common module as possible. And I want to thank this UI guy who was my he's my ex-co-worker. He did the UI and he's awesome. And basically, thank you. I just have to say that it's going to be open source soon, like in 2 weeks, and I'm going to write articles on it. So just follow me on Twitter or see my site, and I will open source this whole thing, and I will go more in depth to the thing because I wasn't able to do that right now.
Okay, so
Don't run away. Don't run away. No.
I'm sure the audience has questions.
We have time.
Who's first to go?
Oh, first things first, before I cut you. It's his first talk.
Yeah. I was actually really stressed out because I didn't have my brown pants and I was afraid that I have some accidents here in the States.
We talked about shitting the pants before this, but that's what he's referring to. But what I really wanted to tell you is I've been doing this for a long time. And for someone who did his first talk, you actually didn't just surprise me, you impressed me. Because you did storytelling and your slides were actually bringing added value. So just for this, thank you so much. It was really a great talk.
Thanks.
And if I might add to that, I think, Reggie, you and I, we were wrong.
Huh?
We were wrong. Because we told him it would be okay. But that wasn't okay. That blew me away. So that was excellent. I think you deserve some more applause for that. Honestly, you're great.
I had some stress because some of you guys put on Twitter that I will blow your minds away with my talk, and I was like, oh shit, it's not even ready yet. So
I'm just happy because I slept 3 times yesterday. I'm sorry. You had a question.
Oh, thank you for the talk, which was more than okay. And
okay.
I'm sorry about my question, which is not specifically about Dart and Flutter. But first, I'm really sorry about your business model because the app is not ugly at all. So being nice UI as a freemium wouldn't really work.
What business model?
The first one with the pink ugly UI, that was a great business model. But
yeah, I think so too.
You're not pursuing that, okay.
So it's the best Finikino app on the Play Store and App Store, but it has ugly UI that you have to buy to get rid of.
I found it was brilliant.
It's perfect. It's a $1 million idea.
So actually, my question is it easy to find a data source for all the movies and pictures, and is it free? Is it a problem to find all the data?
What?
The movies data and the characters and the...
they have open XML API for it. Or what?
The original app, Finkino, or some other DB on the internet?
No, I just use the Finkino APIs for it.
So you just plug into it and it works?
Yeah, it works.
That's great.
The XML APIs work.
Cool.
Well, they are horrible, basically, and I had to hack around it a lot, but they work.
Well, thank you again.
Thanks.
I don't know if you realize, but there's a lot of side notes in what he says. And then he's like, he went from, yeah, it works, to, yeah, I kind of hacked it, but it's fun. And you're like, okay. All right, any other questions? Because this is beautiful. I want this to last. I'm just saying. Yeah, don't forget his gift.
Oh no, not this guy. He's an Angular expert, and I'm not, so.
One question. I got you, Cook. I got you. He spoke to me all last night. I'm scared of this.
So the question is specific to the web part of Dart, the web part.
Yeah.
So we often do JavaScript when we talk about web. And so I want to know your opinion about how you prefer Dart over TypeScript when you talk about web or Dart.
Yeah, basically I started back in 2004 doing JavaScript, but it was a hobby kind of thing, so I didn't do it like full time. I've used ES6, but I haven't used TypeScript, so I have no idea how good or bad TypeScript is. But I love the fact that Dart comes with strong typing out of the box, and that's basically the thing that I really love. I don't have to set up anything. It's just like you have strongly typed language.
Any more questions? No, there it is.
How is the good? Now, how is the logging cycle in Angular Dart? Because I tried it last year, and it's if you come from Flutter and you go back, it's kind of, oh my god, it's a pain.
Yeah, well, they just recently shipped the hot reload kind of thing, but you have to wire it up in your app in a special kind of way. I haven't looked into that just yet. But basically what I had to do is reload the page when I do some changes, and I lose my state. But I haven't used the hot reload part. They just recently shipped that. But I have to say, like, Angular Dart is awesome. CSS is not. Like, I just loved building UIs with Flutter, but now, like, with this app, I was Googling and copy and pasting from Stack Overflow how to center a div vertically, basically.
Do you tweet? Because you have to tweet. As in, you're good in like, if you take 6 words, 144 characters, you're a genius. I'm just saying.
I have a Twitter account.
I
I have a lot of followers.
love this guy, man. I swear to God. I love this guy. Just keep him talking. One more question. Come on, give me something. Give me something. You have anything? By the way, Angular Dart, that was the best part.
That was actually an improvised part.
To piss off your colleagues. Was that true though?
Yeah, in my previous workplace, like people were like, Dart, why would you use Dart? And like they're so rage against Angular for some weird reason. So it's like Dart and Angular, it's like worst parts of every possible technology. So.
Oh man, this second day is beautiful. Oh shit. Okay, we're gonna wrap this up. I'm pretty sure. Thank you so much.
Here's your chocolate. Iiro, please do me a favor. Start 20 new side projects. Fail with 15 of them, and succeed with 5, and come back next year and tell us about it. And please use frameworks and languages and whatever that your colleagues hate. Please.
I'll do that.